So I went to the movies recently to watch either Sonic the Anime or Transformers 1, except it's a Lion King prequel, and I'd tell you to guess, but it doesn't matter, since I don't feel like reviewing either anyway. But before watching that movie, I was treated to a big screen viewing of what has quickly become one of my favorite trailers of all time. And it was a shock, because I may have had my hopes up to see it since it had been released before this weekend's movies, yet I wasn't sure if other movie studios were able to get their hands on it in time. But the moment I saw the first frame of a snowy vista, I knew the next couple minutes were going to give me happy tears. What I didn't know, however, is that there would be a couple unseen shots. And I want to talk about one in particular that might have changed my whole perspective on who I think the villains in this will be. Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, and I may have already given all of my thoughts on this trailer, but I could still talk about those or my thoughts about this movie for hours. And so I will, because I've decided to put all of my other videos on halt and focus on a new Superman series. Meaning I'll have a new video essay on Superman every week honing in on a different aspect of this new movie that I can't help but talk about. So make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to watch the next one. But just like I've already mentioned earlier, to start out this series, this week I want to talk about the theatrical cut of the new Superman trailer, which featured a new look at Mr. Terrific, whose mask and costume we've already seen, but my goodness, his whole look is just ripped straight from the page and is undeniably flawless. Yet it was the theatrical trailer's other new shot that caught my eye, and it was only there for a split second, a blink and you'll miss it kind of shot, but what it contained was a new look at Lex Luthor wearing some incredible sunglasses. And that's it. Nah, just kidding. But that specifically did make me think of a mixture of modern day billionaire tech bro and just a hint of Gene Hackman, even though I searched everywhere and couldn't find one instance of him wearing anything similar. Maybe it was just the way Nicholas Hoult strutted into that room. But behind him are Ultraman and the Engineer, and I'll get to them, but before that, we gotta rewind and look at that frame closely. Because I could be very wrong, but it looks to me like they're breaking into the Fortress of Solitude. Maybe that's why I thought of Hackman, because it looks exactly like this scene. And that one story thread of Lex breaking into the Fortress of Solitude, which again, may or may not happen, has entirely reshaped what I think the Superman story will be. But in addition to that, when I think of any old superhero movie, I've always put more importance on the villains. That could just be because I've always found their motivation or reasoning fascinating, but they also incite the conflict in the story, which is what makes said story interesting in the first place. And I've had a lot of questions about who could possibly be the villain in this new Superman movie, since not much is actually known. Or is it? Working off of the assumption that there's tons of footage from later on in the movie that we just haven't seen, then yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a mystery villain to appear. And I still have some hopes that could happen, that some kind of world-conquering supervillain like Brainiac or maybe even Mongol turns up to show Superman he's not the most powerful being in the universe. Maybe more on that in the coming weeks from my other video essays. But with Lex playing such a prominent role in this trailer and most likely in the film, plus him being plastered across all of the promotional material as one of the big three members of the cast, alongside Clark and Lois themselves, I could legitimately see him being the villain. I mean, I knew he would be important. He's Lex Luthor after all, and his rivalry with the Man of Steel is a staple of the superhero. And quite frankly, I am surprised it's taken this long to get a comic-accurate Luthor. Say what you want about Eisenberg, but I don't even think Hackman's Lex is the fully capable evil genius that he is in the comics. And I am just so excited to see a conniving and hateful mad genius get his time in the spotlight, because that's exactly what he's getting. And the reason why I think that is a genuine possibility is because of the fact that Ultraman, the Engineer, and presumably any other help Lex acquires from Argus is beside him. The one reason why I tend to prefer Lex to not be the only antagonist is all because you can't have too many punch-ups with him. Obviously, his power suit is a must, and I will riot if we don't get at least a glimpse of that, but that's something that best case scenario is saved for a climactic conclusion. And I personally require 3 or at least 4 awesomely choreographed action scenes, which may not be possible with Lex and Lex alone, but with Ultraman, and the fact that we've already seen peaks of a stadium brawl with him and Superman, there will be more than enough action that I won't even be thinking about missing out on intergalactic warlords. And I should also clarify that when I talk about Ultraman, I'm not talking about the multiversal crime syndicate guy. I genuinely don't know why James Gunn decided to give Ultraman that name, because it just invites confusion, but I get the feeling he'll be closer to a Bizarro, and I don't know why I think of it, but Red Sun's Superior Man as well. Honestly, the more I consider it, the more I like the idea of a reveal where Superman manages to get his mask off and realizes he's a messed up clone of himself. Hell, I've even heard theories that Ultraman is Parasite, and Lex is going to be capturing different metas for him to absorb, but I don't think that'll be the case just because that adds a lot of necessary explanation. To be frank, I don't even think Ultraman will be important to the story, because regardless of whether he's Bizarro, Parasite, or any other named villain, Ultraman is just the muscle to give us cool action, which Lex will need if he's planning on getting past Superman's guard dog. But other than good old B&E, a supervillain and superhero classic, why would Lex even want to break into the Fortress of Solitude? Said no one ever. But it's still a question I want to ask because I can only see him breaking in being a major plot point that will likely create, or at least fan the flames of the main conflict in the movie. Because if you weren't aware, on top of the laundry list of dangerous items and weapons commandeered from villains, in the same way Batman adorns his cave, Superman also has a big zoo filled with incredibly dangerous aliens that are, sometimes but not always, the last of their species. And Superman keeps them with conservation and endangerment in mind, but really, it's just because he sees them as pets and loves them. But my first thought when seeing Lex seemingly breaking in there is how he could release one of them and blame Superman for it. And there's a good chance we've already seen one of them, that being the big kaiju. But what are your thoughts on Lex possibly being the main villain of this movie? If not him, who would you want to see? In any case, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe so you can get notified for next week's video essay, and along with the holidays, enjoy a delicious sandwich.